Sorry. That's all right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me grab it. Sorry. Deep in conversation, sir. Roll call, please.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Before we move on to the scheduled absence here. Okay, we'll move on to public participation. Anybody have anything for the Board of Trustees? Hearing nothing, administrators updates.
First, if Sergeant Rogers would like to report out on some activities that occurred yesterday here in Ross Township.
Okay, Sergeant Rogers, the floor is yours.
I was asked by Chief this afternoon to come in and kind of report on some of the happenings that occurred yesterday. Starting about 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon, things got really busy here. Myself, Officer Steppel, and Officer Little got involved in a rape case that turned into about a 2-hour interview here at the PD where the person ended up admitting to it. But it also has brought more information to light where we're probably going to have more charges coming because we're having more victims come in with this. So that, even though we've got an admission, that case is still under investigation because of further witnesses coming in. So that started the afternoon. Immediately after clearing that, myself, Officer Steppel, and Officer Little, because they were actually back en route from the jail, we got called to a missing person situation up on the north end of the township. That case is actually still under investigation as well. We didn't get a whole lot of information yesterday, but since last night and throughout today, we've had multiple phone calls coming in. We've gotten more information of people that may be involved. And what I mean by that is people may knowing like when the person was last seen and possible whereabouts. So that investigation is moving forward. We're getting some information as we go. I would like to say that on both of those cases, Officer Little and Officer Steppel have done a phenomenal job in the investigations of both of them. So I would like to commend them to you guys of how outstanding they have handled both situations. While myself and Officer Steppel continued that investigation of the missing person last night, Officer Hale began working OVI task force, which starts at 6 o'clock. Well, he made a traffic stop down the road here that ended up in a drug arrest. Well, during that, he actually called me on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm gonna need some help with this." So we stopped what we were doing. We went and assisted him. We were on scene with him for probably half an hour dealing with that, made the arrest, did the transfer and everything. Came back here to the PD to finish our paperwork because we've got to get that stuff into dispatch. And while we were working on that, Officer Hale made another traffic stop, actually in the parking lot of our road department. Listening to that radio traffic, Officer Baird showed up on scene to assist with that one. Officer Hale ended up calling for a K-9 to assist with this. But while doing in the investigation, we had some admissions that there were drugs in the cars, there was paraphernalia in the car. So he ended up canceling the K-9. When he did all that, Officer Steppel and I jumped in our cruiser, we went down there. So now there's 4 of us on scene. We had 3 suspects that we ended up arresting last night. But while we were doing the inventory and searching everything, trying to find all of the paraphernalia, all the drugs, 2 of our officers were actually exposed to fentanyl last night, and I had to call a medic while on scene and had to have them transported to Fort Hamilton. Both officers are fine. They got treated at the hospital, and they were released last night. But again, everybody that was on scene last night did a phenomenal job. So our officers are doing what we're expecting them to do. But I wanted to say at the end of this that because we had so much happen last night, we were unable to get a lot of our stuff done because of the exposure. I had to send my officers home because of everything. They, on their own accord, came in early this morning. The same officers that were exposed last night and have been here all day working on getting everything caught up with very minimal sleep. So again, our officers are doing what we're asking them to do, and they're doing a outstanding job. So I wanted to pass that information along to you guys. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Were one of the officers stuck?
one of our officers was stuck with a needle and the other one actually breathed in some of the vapor. So, and I'll actually go into detail about that, about what happened. The officer that was stuck, when he was searching the bag that was full of needles, he got the top part of the bag. All of that was cleaned out. I had already explained to everybody on scene, knowing that there was an admission that came out from one of the people that we arrested, that fentanyl was involved. So as soon as we found that out, I slowed everybody down. I'm like, don't touch anything. When we do this, it's going to be very meticulous. We're going to do one piece at a time because I don't want exposure.
Of course.
As our officer, he was pulling piece by piece out. The needle that stuck him was actually hidden under one of the zippers. The needle was bent backwards and was actually sticking through the leather of the purse. So didn't even see it.
Yeah.
We had the whole area lit up. I had my cruiser pulled up to the area, had high beams on, had my takedowns on, had the floodlight all on the area where we were working. Officer Steppel actually had her flashlight pointed down at everything. So if you're standing there during the situation, it was lit up like it is right here. So you could see everything.
Mm.
Our officers did nothing wrong. I was very proud of the way that they handled themselves.
Yeah.
It was just a freak accident. Could not see the needle where it was. And when he reached in to grab it, it was like the second or third needle that he pulled out. It stuck him right in the wrist. And he immediately looked at me as like, Sarge, hey, I just got stuck.
Mhm.
So I slowed everything down, and it wasn't a minute later. He looked at me and he was like, I don't feel good. Something weird is happening. So I pulled him aside, started looking at him, making sure that he wasn't going to go out on me. And it wasn't 30 seconds later that my other officer looked at me and said, something's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't feel good.
Gosh.
So we got medics there quick and got him to the hospital. So everything happened real quick. But as soon as that happened, I shut the scene down. I'm like, nobody touch anything. We got to lock this down. So
Do people who do that, like sabotage their bags like that, was that needle done
it was a used, it was
to do what it did?
that I don't have the answer for.
Yeah.
I did not interview
Yeah.
the person that was arrested on that, just where it was. It was a used needle. We got over 100 needles out of this stop.
Damn.
Some of the needles were used, some of them were still loaded, some of them were unused. So it was just, you really didn't know what you were reaching there and get, which is why I told them, if you don't see it, don't reach in.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those freak things where it was up under the zipper, tucked in there real tight. And the needle, it wasn't sticking straight up, it was bent backwards.
Yeah.
So where it was sticking through the letter this way. And when he reached in, it got him. It was just a freak thing.
Good job handling all that last.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Golly. That was a heck of a night.
It was.
You mentioned Officer Little during the you were reporting on a rape.
A rape, yes.
He's the school officer.
Correct.
Does it have anything to do with?
He can't answer that.
I can't answer that. Yep.
Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys should be commended for that. I mean, just an example of how dangerous your job can get in an instant, right?
Absolutely.
The professionalism of your team and your department, brings that up from something that, something very different could have happened if they weren't trained
Exactly.
the way they are.
Going back to your question before, and if you're okay with me bringing it up specifically with Officer Steppel, her and Officer Hale were involved in another situation a few days ago. And it was actually Officer Steppel's first time of really having that moment of things switching and getting bad quick. She handled herself very well, but it was the first time she had ever been in a situation like that. But she was able to work through it and learn from it. I think that helped her tremendously going into last night, even though we're a few days later, because myself and Chief have had multiple conversations with her about Saturday's incident, just to make sure that she's learning from it.
Mm-hmm.
And she has reacted from it. She's grown from it, and it hasn't affected her in a negative way. And I think all of that helped her last night with the way things changed, how quick it changed last night with everything going on. I think she's getting to where we need, and she's only been on the job for 2 months. And her growth has been tremendous. I mean, she's handling this missing person investigation almost by herself with with my supervision, of course, just to kind of guide her. She's had questions here and there, but she spent the day today making the decisions like, I got to call this person. I got to call that person. I got to get this information. She's checked social media to see if there's any contact or if there's any movement with this guy. And she's called banks, and she's doing a very good job.
Awesome.
She's working out.
Good.
So-
Good. Yeah, we're proud of her as well as everybody.
Yeah.
For doing that, doing the work for the community.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for the presentation. Please convey on to the officers, are greatly appreciated for what they did. And we know how it can be, just like now, a beautiful evening, and all of a sudden it just turns.
It turns.
That's police work. Days and days of driving around, patrolling, making sure everybody's good. And all of a sudden it's a storm.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, have a good night, Sarge.
Yes, sir.
I do have 2 additional items for updates. The first one is the road superintendent would like for me to inform you at your next meeting, you will have a resolution to authorize the Butler County Engineer's Office to perform the work for the Black Road drainage issue. What they would like, what the engineer's office would like is for them to perform the work just because of how critical the correct grade will be for this project. And they would like for Ross Township to pay for all of the materials, which we would have had to have done anyway if we had done the work in-house, and 50% of the labor costs, plus our crews would assist. The road superintendent is definitely in favor of this because he says it would put the liability back on the county if there's any issues stemming from the project itself. So just to make you aware that will be at your next meeting. And the project, they're shooting for October. So hopefully it will get done this year. And secondly, just to let you know, I sat in on a webinar that was put on by the Ohio Township Association that discussed Robert's Rules of Order for conducting meetings. And I thought that there were 3 important takeaways from that webinar. The first one was that meeting minutes should reflect what was done in the meeting, not what was said. So while I do try to capture the heart of discussion, they did say that, a word for word transcript is not the intent of meeting minutes. So I thought that was good to know. They also said that whenever you make a motion to approve, authorize, whatever the motion is, the motion itself should always be in the positive, in the affirmative. However, if the board is opposed to something, then you vote no. They said that sort of eliminates the whole double negative, people being confused, you don't want to do an action, so you vote yes to not do it. So they just recommended always making motions in the positive and vote no. And thirdly, the other important feature that they talked about was if there is a topic, someone's made a motion, seconded, you're in discussion about the item, but you need additional information. If you want to wait to discuss it until you have this additional information, if you believe that it's going to be discussed later in that meeting, then you table the item. If you believe it will be discussed in another meeting at a later date, then you postpone the item. So that was my 3 takeaways from the webinar, kind of, not anything too drastic, but I thought they were all very interesting points. And that was all the updates that I had this evening.
Good. And that was through the Township Association?
Yes.
Awesome.
Postpone. Thank you, Lori. Moving on to the fiscal officer.
Other than I will not be in the office tomorrow, I came in early today and, I'm probably going to stay this evening, finish up anything I would normally do. I'm leaving to go out of town. I'll be back on Monday to do payroll.
I see here in front of us, we have a packet for the Ross Township fiscal policies, annual budget policy. Is this something for us to read to for upcoming December talks?
No, I think that's a little later in the meeting.
Okay. You have anything else for us this evening, Julie?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Discussion items. First up, confirmation of trick or treat to be held on Tuesday, October 31st, 2023 from 6 to 8 p.m. This was the date that I was called by the Cornerstone to confirm the date, text Lori, and then wanted to present it to make sure that date was okay with both of you for, which is a usual date, correct? Sure. Last day of the month. Okay, so we'll confirm that and I will, at the conclusion of the meeting, I will go ahead and text Georgia back, which I said I would do once we were all in agreement. Item number 2, 2024 tax budget and inside millage discussion continuation.
There is not a lot to share with you, that there's not been a lot of change since the first meeting of the month. Trustee Fisher and I both attended the Butler County Township Association meeting last week, and it was a discussion, and Dave Brown from the auditor was there and discussed it further. Really, I don't think we're any further along than we need to be without knowing what the county's going to do and without knowing what the school district is going to do. By all means, I believe there is one township that I'm aware of that has made a decision. Their ask is so small. They also have JED money. They really, what they are being asked, they're a much larger township and they're being asked to give up less than what we're being asked to give. So I think they're going to go ahead and do it regardless of what the school district does in the county, because they figure, what the heck? It's an olive branch to the folks.
Maybe just to clarify on that, just to make it crystal clear that the township, they have like a $10 million rollover that they're dealing with. So it's apples.
Yeah, it's like a 400%
Yeah.
carryover. Very, very different scenario. Again, my recommendation to you all making the decision is, I feel very firmly about we should not be touching the road and bridge. Do we have a little wiggle room with the general fund? Absolutely. If everybody's contributing, let's do it. But if the county says no, or the school district says no, then, I think our contribution would be better kept in-house. Administrator Kyle and I were having a discussion one day, and she had a really, I thought, very insightful potentially suggestion is to we're being asked to do a lot right now. We have to make a lot of decisions. There's a whole bunch of hurry up and wait and uncertainty and unknown. And she said, what would be the harm in letting the chips fall where they may? And then looking at it next year and saying, wow, that really was harsh. Let's consider rolling back some of our inside millage on general fund next year. Once we know how it's all going to shake out, we might be in a better position to say, wow, we really did receive more than we thought. We can make do and let's do it next year. Now, again, if we're the only one giving it back, it's pretty immaterial, but every little bit helps. And I get that from a taxpayer perspective. I get that too.
And again, the rebate to the taxpayer on that, just so we have the numbers out there, we're about $7
on $100,000 home, $7.07
would be refunded,
just
not collected.
our portion that we would not collect.
Okay.
And again, we have a timeline. We have to give a verbal to if we're not going to participate, we need to give a verbal to the auditor's office so they know. If we are going to participate, it's going to require a resolution from you all doing that. Now, they want us to have an answer to them by the 1st of October. I believe our next meeting is on the 5th. I think that would be close enough for government work. And if I let Mike Stein know, we have a meeting on the 5th, and we're leaning towards doing it, if that's the vibe, then we could let him know. Again, if we're not going to do it and we're just going to sit pat, then all we have to do is say, no, we're not going to roll anything back, and they will do our amounts and rates in the normal fashion. So
I thought last meeting we talked about that and it was postponed till November 1st.
that's the final amounts and rates have to be back to the auditor by November 1st. And that's a resolution accepting them. But if we are going to change our, and the 22 cents is on the table. We can do more, we can do less. It's up to us. If we said, well, we want to give out 12 cents or 44 cents. We really have a lot we can do, but if we're going to do that, that's going to require a resolution from you all that goes to the auditor, so they have the authority to change the amount that they certify back to us. And then I will review it, give it back to you, and then we will officially adopt it. And then that's all by November 1st. If House Bill 187 should somehow Hail Mary and happen to pass, then I believe all bets are off. And I think we have to do the amounts and rates again. So, because we will have said we have 92 cents and we're only going to certify 70. And that's what's officially on the books with the auditor. If House Bill 187 goes through, and then they will have to give us back our amounts and rates, and we'll have to do it again. So there is a lot of things that have to happen if they're going to happen. And we don't have a lot of time. And we have budgets that we have to lock down going into the end of the year, the last quarter of the year. So basically what I'm telling you is I don't have a lot more to contribute than where we were at the last meeting.
Good input from Administrator Kyle. Thank you.
I noticed you were looking through some notes.
Yeah, this is just sort of where I stand on it. I typed this out. I don't think I want to read this. I learned not to inject much opinion with it, just to try to stick with the facts. To me, the facts are that the median income house in Ross is at around 225. That's $1.44 a month. I don't know anybody in Ross who's going to miss $1.44 a month. I think having that available, you might want to say for the road fund, the road bridge fund, would be good. I just don't, I don't see where that's going to harm anyone. I don't see it. I don't see that the people are going to benefit from it. I understand what the auditor's saying. She's kind of put the onus on us by saying that, although her communication to me was that she's not trying to strong arm anybody. And it didn't feel strong armed, but to say that it's a sign of good faith, then we have to ask ourselves, well, what's the cost of that good faith? And I think that residents of Ross would be better served having that money available when needs for the roads come up, when we need new machinery, when, the guys deserve a raise, when the cost of petroleum-based products and even fuel go up. I like my streets kept clear, clean, and, easy to navigate more so than I need $1.44 a month. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if we need, for me, if I necessarily need to wait. I'm not asking you not to wait. I'm just saying that's sort of how I see it. I'm perfectly willing to listen, and I've encouraged people to, to text me, to call me, to email me if they have a difference of opinion or an opinion at all on it. And the people who I have talked to said, yeah, that I'd rather see it go to, to the road fund.
Sure.
So I haven't heard from many people, maybe 4.
Yeah, I would agree from the feedback that I got that most people are surprised that we're talking about these amounts, that it's, to most people, it's kind of an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah.
But to me, I think at least it can show the community and the entire township that we care about every penny that they're paying in tax. And if we're talking about $1.44 a month for, 20 or 30 minutes every couple of weeks, it's because we care about, their money and decisions. It's kind of my takeaway from it. But yeah, I think is a work session here. Yeah, I think the township benefits more from the $70,000 roughly, right? To have that, and Lori makes a great point that if next year we have a big surplus and we don't want to do something next year, then there's a lot of, unknowns, I think, right now. So, yeah, I'm kind of leaning in that way too. I don't think many people would mind paying that tax amount for the benefit that they get.
And that is a very good point, because if we get these, I'm not gonna use the right term, but rollbacks or, whatever extra money that comes into the township, and we have that, and then all of a sudden there is a surplus, then, okay, then let's give it back. But I don't think what John said, I thought was a good way to say it, which is who and where do we benefit the most? Does the township benefit the most by, having the money available to fix the roads when they need it, to upgrade machinery when they need it, without there being a road levy? That's something else that I put further down into this little narrative here, which is we don't have, how did I end up putting that? Because the school officer told me how to put that. The road department is funded from the township's inside mills stemming from the general fund, the road fund, and the bridge fund. There's not a specific, all right about that, a specific road levy.
We do not have one voted on outside the 10 mil. There's not one being put forth to the people.
Okay. And given the climate for levies these days, asking, we've asked the taxpayers for a police levy. The schools have asked for school levies. And if we ever got to the point where we had to ask for a road levy, it would be a tough ask. And it would be more than what this $1.44 a month is. We wouldn't just be asking for $1.44 a month from the median income house. It would be significantly more. I don't know what that $1.44 a month or that $14 a month translates to in terms of millage, but it's probably 0.1 or 0.2, pretty small. And I'm sure we have to ask for at least a mill, 3/4 of a mill if we're going to.
Keep in mind, we've had a lot of our road projects this year had, for the first time, some overage costs, unforeseen situations. Now we have a situation on Black Road. It's something that we wanted to help mitigate. Didn't think it was going to be an item till next year. So this is an unbudgeted item. It's just not an unusual situation where we have things crop up, especially for the road department. A lot of times they don't know what the culvert repairs are going to be until they're in the middle of, they can do their best to estimate, but sometimes those things. So they are kind of a moving target, that department, because it's kind of like when you do a home project and all you're going to do is change the cabinet in the bathroom, and then next thing you know, the subfloor shot, and it's just one of those things. So they're very good at what they do, and they're very good at estimating, but this has just been an unusual year. If we have another year or two like that, the general fund might be asked to help supplement. Up until now, it's been mostly sharing costs on capital projects just because they don't have an outside levy.
Wasn't Superintendent Bulak going to provide the labor for Black Road because they thought that was something they could do, but now we're being told that we're going to pay 50% of what that labor is to Butler County, which was not accounted for.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. We were not budgeting for that particular project this year because Butler County told us there's no way they'd get to it this year. Well, the rains this last spring and summer have moved that project up the list. So
Any idea what our contribution will be to that?
I don't believe we have been given any quotes. So.
Okay. Okay.
Big question marks.
It's going to be a lot of excavation work.
Yes.
From what we were presented almost a year ago. Of course, I think the engineering part's already been done by the county for elevations, culverts, gravel, and of course, machinery time. I would agree with you on the $144 a month. I wrote down the 70,000. I'll bet we reach that mark easily on Black Road. We also know that we've got a new snowplow coming in. That's the truck, salt spreader, probably the 2 liquid tanks on the side that assist the salt to staying on the roadway, and the plow. I think this truck is probably close to $200,000. And it was just mentioned again that the maintenance and the way our 3 road department employees handle their business up there. I think the oldest single axle dump truck is probably going to be approaching 20 years old.
Yes.
They do a lot of in-house engine work. Jeff does to save money. I think the last one was either a head was cracked or a turbo went out on the oldest truck, and in-house work and back on the road. But it was thousands of dollars to get that head replaced. So I'll agree with Russ. I don't think I have to wait until the next meeting to decide this. And I'll turn it back over to.
While they're looking, are we leaning no at this point in communicating that? Because that would require no resolution.
Yes,
No resolution.
no
We
resolution.
need to put that as in a motion, or? I mean, it's not a formal action from us.
We're just not acting on something that we were.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
All right. I will
So we're not gonna act.
communicate that. And keep in mind,
I'm sorry, public participation's closed,
I know.
and we're gonna go on with the meeting.
Do something. Do you mind that?
We're gonna stay with the agenda, sir.
Okay, fine.
I will mention that every year during the amounts and rates, you have the opportunity to voluntarily roll back millage. I just from my experience in the auditor's office, there would be a time or two where a township would say, you know what, we're collecting way more than we thought we should on this fire and EMS, and we're going to roll back 50 cents on it for a year and see, and so
Okay.
just know that you have that opportunity. It's just because Auditor Nix has suggested it this year, kind of in a communal way, that's great. But the board always has that option every year. Say, look, I think we're good. Let's throw a little bit back. So
And that gives us the option of the best of both worlds.
absolutely.
Okay. Would it be worth putting on somebody's calendar to say, let's see where we are in 6 months with all of this?
Well,
When you mentioned rollbacks in future, because by then all these other things that they're doing in the county should be done.
I mean, everything will have to be done pretty much by mid-November for the auditor to have tax bills in a timely manner. So like I said, we're going to be asked to approve our amounts and rates by November 1st. So at some point during October, we'll be approving the amounts and rates. That's one piece of it. We'll be doing budgets. We really won't have a true depiction until probably the latter part of January, when we see finals, when we see final values. I mean, the rates and the values will be finalized so that the auditor can have a tax bill. I'm going to guess it's not going to be an early tax bill. I'm thinking it's going to be a March due date. So we probably will know where we stand in January. And then we will have an opportunity to amend our budget. If we have more revenue coming in than we think, and if we feel we need it, we can amend the budget. If we're happy with what we've appropriated for the year, we don't have to do anything. If we think, oh, we're going to have a shortfall in this bucket and we see that we're going to have more money coming in, we absolutely can amend our revenues and our expenses. So we'll have those opportunities.
So by, at the latest March, which would be before
Oh, absolutely.
the next tax bill starts to create, which is what, August or October?
Right.
If there were to be a rollback or we saw the.
You can't do anything mid-year.
Okay.
You pretty much have your warning shot when you do your amounts and rates.
Okay.
Now, the auditor has said if for some reason House Bill 187 or some other version of it would pass and they could do the auditor can do a mid-year adjustment on tax bills,
Mhm.
it's a huge ask. I would think that if they were in that position, it's going to be strange. They don't like to change the bills from
Yeah.
first half to, but it can be done.
Okay.
So, but I think that's more, it's possible, but it's not probable.
Okay.
But January, you guys should have a much better feel of where we are.
Okay. Good, good. All right. Next up is the Butler County Board of Commissioners, local community allocation of ARPA and SLFRF funding. What's the acronym?
Slurf.
Slurf?
Yeah. And that,
Yeah, I wasn't even going to try to pull that off. I seen this in the paper before before I seen it in the email. City of Fairfield is going to get $1 million. City of Hamilton, 2. City of Middletown, 2. City of Oxford, 1. And the commissioners allocated $150,000 to each township. This had come up when Trustee Patterson was here, and we had spoke about this, assisting the homeless. And I think the biggest part for the townships is we don't already have a brick and mortar building in place to assist the homeless. So how are we going to allocate this funding to assist the homeless when the city of Hamilton, they have Serve City, which I've used on a few occasions through my police career. I also believe there's a church, I don't know the name of it, in the city of Hamilton also does that. And I'm sure the other cities also have a brick and mortar building in place with a program already set up with employees and people that can help way beyond the manpower that we have. So I'm really at a loss starting out of what we would be able to do by, is there a certain date this has to be used? We don't know that.
I would think that because they're ARPA funds, they have to be expended or allocated by December 24. I believe if you have a project and let's just say we were going to build a building and we had construction costs, but we knew we'd have through 26 to pay it off, but you have to have it like budgeted. And so that's not something. So for our
Okay.
intent and purpose, we'd have to have it spent by December of 2024.
A year and a few months. Okay.
And the underserved can be more than just homeless. It can be food pantries and Administrator Kyle and I've been kicking it around. I mean, it would require a lot of reporting on our part because we're going to be a subrecipient. And then if we would, let's say, make grants available to community-based organizations who are serving the community, then they become like a third party. So they would report to us for us to report to the county. And like I told Administrator Kyle, I'm not saying that I don't want to do this because it's a lot of work. Because I would never, if we have an opportunity to help the community,
Yes.
make it happen. So that's just a caution. There's a lot of reporting on our part by us subgranting our subgrant, if that makes any sense.
So we would be able to help RAM
Potentially.
if we allocate.
Able to help RAM, but remember RAM services outside of Ross Township. So how difficult would it be for RAM to keep the funding?
Inside the township.
Unless we partnered with maybe Morgan.
Put our monies together.
Another potential thought we had is to basically open it up to, there are quite a few churches and I don't know everything that all of them do. Some of them have food pantries and clothing shelters. And I know RAM helps with utilities and things like that. Perhaps maybe we have them give them a deadline and say, if you have a project, let's just say one of those organizations needs a new deep freeze. And it's going to be about a commercial grade deep freeze and it's going to be about $15,000. They could make a presentation, but we would have to have a whole lot of stuff in place, policies and things. It could all be done. And maybe, but this is a fantastic opportunity, but we're not geared for it.
Right.
Now I could reach out to other townships and ask if any of, some other townships did do sub-grant work during the beginning of ARPA and CARES Act and all that.
Because I believe the commissioner said they don't want this money just to lay in the bank.
No.
They want it
No.
used in a proper way.
They were very firm on that, and TC said nobody wants to run up against him on this, or something like that. In other words, he was very firm on it
Yeah.
and vocal. So if it's used to put a new roof on, he's gonna blow a gasket.
Right.
If we're using it properly, then they're happy.
Yeah, I think we had some time to think of some ideas and talk to other townships and what,
Postpone,
how they would be used.
do we postpone that and kind of talk about it a little?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yeah, I mean, we've
Yeah.
got a year.
Yeah.
I mean, disparate populations, I mean, that's kind of a general term,
Mm-hmm.
so that's probably deliberate in being somewhat vague to us.
Mhm.
So, I know that doesn't mean a new roof,
Sure.
but it can also, I mean, where I read this is mitigate the needs of the underserved.
Mhm.
And, I think if we focus on the underserved, there's a lot we can come up with.
Well, we also kind of wondered if we could partner with something like the Ross Community Foundation, because we don't know what requests have been made of them. Maybe there's a project out there. I don't know. But if we don't ask,
Sure.
We're meeting with them Monday, aren't we?
The 25th.
Or we're listening.
Yes,
that might be.
but that, again, that could be a question. I set that date and I agreed to it when I spoke with Martha Mill. I will not be in attendance. That's going to be my oldest grandson's senior night and his birthday, both in the same day. So I will be at East Central enjoying a soccer.
Good.
Another local entity that is a for-profit is Frontier Wellness. If you go on her website, she has a different approach. She does not accept health insurance, and she tries to service those that obviously don't have health insurance, but by not needing to jump through all of those hoops, she can charge quite a bit less. She does house calls. She has a whole host of services, and she is geared towards rural community. So, we even discussed if we could subsidize her giving COVID shots, flu shots, pneumonia shots, that kind of thing. But, first of all, she's going to have to confirm that it's a Ross Township resident. She would have to confirm that there's a financial need, how does,
Mhm.
who's going to be,
But she's already
enforcing
kind of geared. That's her clientele. I mean,
But that's a great idea. To sit somebody with health needs to get that, well, you can get the CVS, you get the flu shots for free, but a wellness visit and be able to,
Do you only get it for free through your insurance?
I'm sorry,
If you don't have health insurance, do you still get it for free at that
I-
pharmacy?
I was just there at the pharmacy the other day. I could have swore that was the sign. Maybe they said they give them for flu shots. I'll stop in again this week and look what the sign says and I'll ask the pharmacist.
'cause we don't even have an active senior center or any, I mean,
No.
if we had an active center of some sort, it would be a little easier.
Right.
But maybe we just put it out there. You have a need and you're serving the underserved,
Right.
give us a proposal.
The community fund's a good,
And then,
they're probably already geared toward, they're more of a .org than a .com, if you want to use that term. And I love Janae. I cried that woman saved my life. She did.
Isn't she fabulous?
Came to my
Well,
house when I was really sick.
do we
Five churches?
post it that we're looking Oh, I mean, I think if we reach out to certain organizations and not all organizations,
Herman,
we
3.
just kind of put it out there that, hey, if you feel you have
Ross Christian,
an
27.
organization
4.
2 down, 128, past.
where you have,
So 6.
you're serving the underserved and you have a need,
Let us know.
put us a proposal and put a dollar amount to it and tell us how you plan to implement it and to ensure that it goes to the citizens of Ross.
Mhm.
And again, it maybe wouldn't hurt to talk to Morgan, especially if they're thinking about the same thing. Because RAM does a lot of great stuff, but they do serve the entire RAM community.
I'll tell you what, I kind of always go back to this public participation piece and kind of listening to the community. I mean, I think this is a great chance for us to hear what the community has ideas on. And if it's, putting it on the website to kind of get the ball rolling, hopefully they see the video here and hear that. But, the more public participation we can have on these types of things, the
Mhm.
better.
Yep.
I mean, we want more ideas than less, right?
Right.
Do you want to put it on our website for a couple weeks or send a letter out? to
Yeah,
the
or maybe let's think
ministries?
about that. Yeah, maybe we got some time to deal with this, I think.
Okay.
Think about like the wording on how we want to do it instead of just throwing up.
Because I don't know if the commissioners are just going to automatically give us. the
Yeah,
money.
I think we should have the
We're gonna
brakes
have
on
to-
putting it on the website, but just to kind of think it through
Okay.
if we want to get, more ideas from the community on how to use it.
So I will respond to the county administrator that you are interested in accepting this money.
Or at least a portion.
We have to devise a plan. I'll get specifics from her about, if there's a deadline that we need to have identified how
Okay.
it's going to be spent, or if we can just accept it.
And honestly, maybe this is something we shoot for January of 24, hopefully everything's in place.
Yeah, I don't want to put the horse before the cart. Let's
Right.
find out all the details around when it's dispersed and how it needs to be dispersed and if it can be dispersed third party and all of those things before we get, but yeah, also just to know that kind of community involvement would be the next step.
And if we need to actually report to the commissioners, where the money's gone. The articles I read and the video I watched didn't indicate that.
It's part of the interim ruling on this money that if you don't use the money directly, you subgrant it.
Mhm.
Whoever you subgranted it to is
Okay.
required to report to you.
Okay.
If we subgrant it again, they're going to be required to, I mean, we might not need, like with the wellness program, maybe we dedicate 50,000 to them and she can say, here's how it was spent,
Mhm.
not specific names,
Right.
but, X number of residents at dollar amount equals and keep track. And then we would have to report that to the county as this 50,000 was spent this way, this 50,000 was spent this way.
Okay.
And this remains to be spent. So it's ongoing.
Anything further on the ARPA funding? Hearing nothing, move on to fiscal policies review. You up again on that one, Jewel?
I don't know. I think I'm here just as, no. Fiscal policy. We have a budget policy that's worked, this was kind of worked through with former Administrator Bass. And I worked with him when I took office to kind of tighten things up. We pretty much operate the way this is stated. It's been amended along the way, how I report items to you, how things are made available for your review and how you sign off on them. Because we do utilize electronic signatures by means of purchase orders, direct deposits and checks. All four of us are electronic signatures, but the steps that we have in place to ensure that things can be properly reviewed. The tax budget, the temporary tax budget process that we did back in May and June. We're now going into budget season for our final budget for next year. I personally don't see, I don't feel like we have a shortfall anywhere. I'm not sure how you all feel about it. And if you feel like it's working,
What does that mean?
policy and precedent check error,
It's book, it's highlighted.
bookmark, not defined. What is
I
that?
don't know what that meant.
I don't know.
Oh, there.
It could just be a fat finger got pasted in there. I don't know. Error, bookmark, not defined.
Highlighted, that's it.
That's weird. Well, I think that's a ghost. Put that in there. Our purchase order policy, I think works really well. If it's a budgeted item, regardless of dollar amount, the administrator has the ability to sign up on the requisition. If it's an unbudgeted item under a certain dollar amount, again, the administrator can sign off if she feels that it gets a proper public purpose. If it's over a certain dollar amount, it has to be approved by you all. If it's an emergency, like, oh, the boiler blew up and it's over a certain dollar amount and we have to expend the funds quickly to get it fixed, then there's the then and now process on the purchase orders. We don't use a lot of then and nows, meaning they didn't have the purchase order in place before the purchase was made. Largely because on some buckets of money, things like supplies, general contracted services, minor things, I do blankets. So if Department A is budgeted $10,000 in supplies, I will do a $2,500 or a $5,000 supply blanket and just pay various vendors through that. And we have a lot of blankets. I do blankets for auto repair, unless like there's an accident or a deer crash or something and they get a quote, then I will do a vendor specific for that because that's fine. But little oil changes, things like that, I'll get paid off of blankets. The bill payment policy, basically with the fact that purchase orders, which I just kind of covered, are issued in one manner. You guys are afforded an opportunity at the first meeting of the month to review all the purchase orders, whether it be a blanket or a vendor specific. And then because of the purchase order is in place, when a bill comes in, we have a promise to pay that through the purchase order. So only a handful of items ever get held because we had one this year. We had the road project. We weren't happy with the quality of it. And so we held the bulk of the payment on that until we were satisfied that the work was going to be done with our approval. Really, the credit card falls in there. The department, the folks who are issued credit cards are so good about having all their receipts. It's a good example is the Fish with the Cop event, and that is a fund in and of itself that's earmarked for that. David Little had come to me and said, how much do we have in the fund? This is about how much I think we're going to spend. I did a blanket purchase order for that, and he came in well under what he thought he was going to spend. Saved every receipt. They do such a good job with stuff like that. So I just sat and went through every one of those to make sure nothing that was not supposed to be purchased was purchased. Because, sometimes those receipts can be long when they're buying things for an event. So not even a stick of gum gets purchased if it's not supposed to. So they're very good about that. Bills typically get paid on Fridays. That's my discretion. Like tonight, I'm paying the bills tonight instead of tomorrow. And then we are utilizing positive pay system because we still do use a fair amount of paper checks. Not everything's electronic. That seems to be working. It's an extra $30 a month. Is that expensive? Yeah, I think so, but it's peace of mind knowing that if one of our checks gets taken, stolen, washed, and it's a good stopgap measure. I'm not going to say it won't get through, but the odds that it's going to get through are pretty nil. So currently our banking expenses are about $60 a month. We have the online banking, we have the mobile banking, and the, or I'm sorry, the ACH, electronic payment banking fee, and then the positive pay. So, a year from now, none of our checks have been compromised. Do we assess? Do we want to cut that loose? I don't know. I think with the way the world is, I think it's a good insurance policy to have to protect our payments. We implemented the locked mailbox this year because we get a lot of interesting things. I don't want something to be stolen and compromised that way. So we're trying to lock things down, and that all pertains to how bills, because we get a lot of paper bills through the mail. We get a lot of checks through the mail. So those are all safeguards, I think.
Do you think we have a PO box where you have?
No, we
Just
have a
this mail.
locking, but we do have a PO box. The fire department still has a PO box.
Okay.
Because the one station, they can't have a mailbox. So they still have a PO box. And it's real hit and miss as to whether it would get delivered there anyway. Because I guess the post person doesn't want to deliver. I don't know. It's a thing. So he still has a safe deposit, or I'm sorry, a
PO
post office box. But we implemented a locked mailbox. You can put it in the mail slot, but you can't take stuff out. We just did that about a month or two ago.
Okay, I was gonna say, 'cause every once in a while, I grab the mail on Saturday and put it in here if I was
It
on-
occurred
in
to
the
me one
property.
day as I watched people walking through our parking lot eating ice cream, but we are so trusting. And I'm getting less and less trusting. So I thought, how much would it be to buy a mailbox? So we did.
Good idea.
So, back to I kind of got a little off topic, the credit card policy. Everyone who's been issued a credit card has signed a credit card agreement. They understand how it works. They know they have to turn in receipts. And then again, you guys are offered the ability to see it. We're on a month's delay in paying it. So at the next meeting, for example, you will review the August credit card payment bill. So, and then we have the payroll time clock policy, which that, if anything, that probably needs to be the one that needs to be amended. Needs some verbiage put in regarding whether we are going to allow or not allow the use of the mobile app. It's not referenced at all in the policy, so we're lacking in that. And then that's pretty much going through at a really high overview. If there's anything you want to break down, discuss a little more thoroughly, you want to ingest and think about, we can postpone further discussion on it till another work session. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of moving parts.
Can we back up for a second?
Absolutely.
You just brought up something about the pay system in the app, and it wasn't in here, but on number 3, B definition, down towards the bottom, it also includes when an employee enters their username
Oh,
and password to utilize the time clock systems app or web portal. So yes, it is mentioned.
okay, it is mentioned.
The employee may have multiple job classifications assigned to him or her.
Okay,
Okay. B.
all right. So, but it may need to be a little more locked down.
Yes.
Okay. We are in the middle of the HR audit, which may bring up more things as we go. I just answered a whole series of questions for Shantice, who was the HR auditor. I know she's been working with Administrator Kyle, so I fully expect get some feedback. For example, she let me know that the new I-9 will be in effect as of November 1st, or yes, of this year. The I-9 is the employment verification process that you go through to ensure that the person that you hired is a United States citizen or has the appropriate work visa to work here legally. And it is something we are required to have on file for every employee. She's also made me aware that there is some sort of e-verify system, and I told her I would like more information about that. So it may cut down on the amount of paperwork we're doing. for that particular, and I know that's a little off topic, but I mean, it's nice that she's giving us some real-time feedback. And I really actually am looking forward to sitting down with her and hearing what she has to say at the end.
Would she have reviewed this document?
I don't know, did you give her any of these policies?
No, I think she's more of the, state and federally mandated
Sure. Okay.
policy.
And who knows what she's going to be asking, because she asked me a lot of payroll personnel type questions this time. And then, so I have a feeling it's just the tip of the iceberg. She's asking, I think we're going to be getting a lot of, and now I need these questions answered type thing, which is fine. This is why we're doing this.
Absolutely. And when is the feedback going to be given?
I don't think she's giving us a
Okay.
time, because she has a lot to take in.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, but, so as far as the fiscal policies, it is broken down into several categories. If you feel like we have a shortfall, something's not getting done, if you don't like the way it's being done, I'm sure that there's a workaround. When I came in, I adjusted some things from the way, my predecessor had done some things. I brought my knowledge with me on how we operated at the county, much bigger pond, and kind of tailored my expectations to the size of our pond, but thought there were some ways we could tighten some things up. There were some things that bothered me. Not that it was just her way of doing things. That's, I don't want to say that imply that her method was bad. It's just, I'm a little more electronically oriented, and let's get it. Let's not have so much paper or so much manual. Which is, for example, going to an electronic timekeeping system was my almost requirement, because we were just making way too many mistakes, and that's a royal too many mistakes were being made on punch cards and calculating, and nope, let's eliminate as much error as we humanly can. So
How do you do the I-9s now?
you fill them out in person, and you have to give a copy of your driver's license and your social security card or passport.
Yeah. That's all done online.
Yeah, I was unaware of that. So,
These are the things we don't
Yeah.
know.
And
Yeah.
it's quick. It's 5 minutes.
okay, well,
You're with-
I would love that. It would make things a lot, because I'm running around chasing people down going, I need your I-9.
Yeah.
Because theoretically, I shouldn't even pay you before I have your I-9 in hand. So. And just a fun fact on that, we had an employee during my tenure here who had all the proper paperwork. He was a naturalized citizen, had all the proper paperwork, and turned out he was doing identity fraud. He was presenting himself as a fireman in one county and a policeman in one county, and he had more identities than.
Clark County.
Yeah, and he had all the paperwork and he had all the documentation, so it can still happen.
Is this something you want to dig down into, Keith? See if there's any changes.
Yeah,
Is that,
Which one?
yeah, I've played what I've seen this online.
Okay.
I'll read into it.
okay,
Okay, so if you guys,
Highlight some things.
we're postponing that.
we're postponing the,
Okay.
postpone.
Uh-huh.
I will put it in my folder for review. And if you have any questions as you're reading through, just shoot me an email or give me a call and I'll give you my best explanation.
We all good with the fiscal policies review? Okay, moving on to building use policy. This has come up a couple of times throughout this year. Refresh my memory, originally started because somebody wanted to hang something on the wall. Is that where it all began? And it wasn't approved by the board. The board did not approve it. We've got things up here that represent the township and its history, but we just didn't want to overclutter the walls. This meeting room / that quarter is the police department. So we got to the point where how do we allocate who can use this meeting room? When, where, and why? Currently, the only outside entity that does use the meeting room, as far as I know, is just the Historical Society, correct?
Actually, they have their membership meets once a month, but also their board meets here.
Okay, so they're in the building twice a month. Yeah, this was put on in our email for the agenda set out on Tuesday. I went through it partially, but not completely, so I really, at this time, I don't have anything to add unless there's some questions or ideas from the other members.
I read through it. I didn't see anything that,
Yeah, I didn't see anything that was unusual, just to be, very cognizant of who we would open the doors to, just because we do have a police department, a lot of sensitive things here that probably I wouldn't approve a birthday party. For instance, I think
Just recently, somebody wanted to use the parking lot this summer for an event and they canceled before we could refuse it. Remember?
Yes, actually, the gentleman stopped in here not too long ago. They have a 9/11 event, which they were going to have in the spring. I think it's a motorcycle that they were going to convene here, and they were going to have some, I don't know, food trucks and things, but they were going to kick off from here. But he stopped in here to ask if and they had a ride this year, but it didn't start here. But a couple days after 9/11, he came in here to see if next year they could start from here. And so I said, well, put all the details in an email and email it to me. I haven't received that yet.
I mean, I think if things are outside, there's less risk, obviously, inside, so. But as far as just, we're talking about the document, I thought the document was sufficient.
Okay. We'll take an opportunity and review it in its entirety. And going back to that motorcycle thing, I find that odd that they want to begin here because most of the time they'll begin like a VFW hall or a sports bar parking lot, something like that. So to come here and set up a dinner, that was odd at that time. And apparently we'll be talking about that in 2024 further. And again, John, I agree with you. To me, this is not a place to hold a birthday party. We have displays. That's a business over there with privacy issues and
does it say?
then cleaning or damage. And if it just leaves it open to a broad spectrum by.
And closing the building and.
Yes. And then I know we're a public entity, so we do have liability insurance. We have the proper handicap entrance. But again, I think when you open it, you open yourself up for problems.
Are there notes in there about you can't use you can't have a, birthday bar mitzvah?
No, there was one thing that, it was a very broad statement
Yeah.
on you can't, will not be denied to any group or individual because of race, religion, color,
Right.
sex, national origin. So, we don't put a bunch of exclusions on there, but at the end of it really comes up to, is the use proper or not?
It really kind of is all number two,
Yeah.
because we're saying community, entertainment, education, discussions of topics. It's kind of tailored towards organizations and not a family wanting to hold a birthday party. That's.
Right, unless they consider that entertainment. I agree with you.
Yeah, that word is
But we shouldn't have, birthday parties and
limited to education.
graduation parties.
Anniversaries. Stuff like that.
I do believe that the fire department very infrequently has birthday parties. Very infrequently, but they have been known to.
Would it be for a family of a fireman or something?
The fire chief did not indicate that.
Okay. That's right. We have to think about all the buildings, not just this one.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was a fire department person that the chief gave permission to, then I can't use it.
Right.
There's always an hole.
It always comes down to that.
Yeah.
That's-
So we're postponing approval on, or
Yeah,
further discussion.
Let me make a mental note to read it completely. Okay. Is there anything further from the board this evening?
just one quick thing.
Yeah.
I talked to the Butler County Engineer's Office today about the property down on Morgan Lane at the end there. I talked to Kar Singh and I talked to Eric, and I can't remember what Eric's last name was.
Pottinger?
Yes. He is in charge of floodplain
Mhm.
type stuff. I asked them about the viability of that property. He said the way that floodplains work is that if we wanted to build up that land on the 3.453 acres, dirt has to come from another portion of that floodplain. We couldn't just have it trucked in from Harrison or what have you. And I said, well, what about that 0.75 acre lot that's over there? Can we, in a sense, sacrifice that lot, have some of that dirt brought up to the other lot to make it viable where it can be sold and made usable? They are going to check into that. They have to do some type of an elevation study. And I guess they sort of want to maybe calculate, is what I'm trying to get, is calculate how much dirt has to be moved. Having said that, I told them, we have a piece of property that, in my mind, has significant value if it's saleable. And, as it sits now, it's really not really worth much, but can we make it saleable? And they completely were on board. They completely understood what I was asking for and are going to check into it and get back with me.
Hey, give us an idea.
Yeah. I mean, if we can't do anything with it, then okay, but I'm just trying to explore it.
Information.
That's all I have.
All right.
I was invited to Dylan Woodrum State Farm Agents open house ribbon cutting last week. So I went to that, and good to see somebody in the State Farm property over there. So nice young family and agent that going to be working in Ross. So
Did the other guy retire or did he move that was in there?
I think he retired.
Okay. Does he live in Ross?
No.
Want to live in Ross?
I think he's got a lot of family in Milford or something on that.
That's a
the other
good
side of town. So, but yeah, he was very excited about this area, and I guess he had offers to go other places, but he chose
Good.
Ross as his location. So
Good.
Wish them the best.
Welcome to the township.
Thanks for attending that and letting us know.
I think it was wrapping up when I came by after work. I seen people sitting out in the front parking lot in the launch area. And I was in work clothes, so I couldn't even make an appearance. Okay, if there's nothing further from the board, we're going to move into executive session. Move for the adoption of motion number 23-129 to retire to executive session to discuss the investigation of complaints against a public employee in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1, and to consider confidential information related to specific business strategies of an applicant for economic development assistance in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G8. And the time is, sir?
7:14.
7:14. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Trustee Fisher.
Yes.
Trustee Blau.
Yes. I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. Our next regular business meeting will be October 5th at 6 PM at the present location. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll let you get into the position of authority. Move for the adoption of motion 23-130 to return from executive session to the work session. The time is
8:02.
8:02. Need a second?
Second?
Roll call.
Trustee McGurran,
Yes?
trustee Fisher,
Yes.
trustee Blower.
Yes. Closing action. Is there any further discussion to come before the board? Move for the adoption of motion 23-131 to adjourn the meeting. Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee McGurran,
Yes?
trustee Fisher,
Yes.
trustee Blower.
Yes.